Wonderful, losing my hair. So let's call the third quarter meeting of the IT Information Technology Advisory Committee to order. It's September 14th at 7:30, a little past 7:30 p.m. 7:45 p.m. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. The first order of business is, I think, approving the minutes of our last meeting. Is that correct? Yes. Should be. Which I have distributed to everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, guys.
So if I understand correctly, there were some edits proposed for the minutes?
Yes. And those have been incorporated.
So even just now, right? So, sorry, I think there was some pre-discussion about
yes.
there may be some additional edits required for the minutes. Right. So some of the suggestion had been to strip away some of the Emacs encoding at the very end of the minutes.
Yes.
Had been to omit certain names, those an update to an email.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Okay. Good point. Good point. Yes. So there were, Phil, we need to correct your email. You want the live.com?
Yeah, PLaw at live. Yeah, PLaw.
I need to fix that too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can actually do this here as we're talking.
Is it still PWL?
Well, that one doesn't.
No. It's live.com.
Yeah, PLAW.
Okay, that's what I was checking.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm just trying to get the hang of your thing here. Oh, and then it's the pipe law, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, old school.
Yeah. And then strip out the Emacs at the end. Got it.
And I suggest removing the not presents.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The town clerk just gave me some new I think there's some guidelines. I don't know if these are new or not, just around modifications to minutes, like they want, for agendas when we're submitting agendas and they're changing from one, like sometimes we submit multiple agendas and things change. So they give me some guidelines on that, but I think these are okay for minutes. And any other issues?
So I'll move to accept them as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, they are unanimously adopted. Great. Okay. The second order of business is for the public to have any comments. I don't think we have any members of the public here. And let me just see online if we have any members of the public attending virtually. We do not have any attendees. Don't take it personally, but I just want to make sure, because if we did, they could attend, they could participate. Okay, moving on to. Oh, hey, sir, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
You post that into the meeting that you submit to the.
Yes. So the link for when I post the agenda, the link to because I scheduled the hangout in advance, so we've got the URL for the hangout, and that's part of the agenda. So people just get it from the website, and then when we post the minutes, I post the link to the completed video, which is on YouTube in the Belmont IT Advisory Committee channel.
So I'm going to have to get that from you to do this week's.
Okay, that's fine. Yep.
I think I did it we did that the last time. You sent it to me.
I think it's in the agenda that I sent you guys
okay.
up at the top, and I don't think it changes after they process it. So
yeah.
But yes.
Okay.
So we already approved the minutes, sir, I'm afraid, but that's okay.
Sorry.
Okay, next order of business per the town clerk is a discussion of an inadvertent open meeting law violation that occurred not in this committee, but in the subcommittee, Phil and my subcommittee on 21st century government, where we held a meeting but forgot to formally reserve the room and post the minutes. And I think there was just
The agenda.
post the agenda.
We got
We did.
caught when we posted the.
Right, that's right. That's right. We did send the minutes in. We took minutes and submitted them, and that was the tell of like what's the meeting that these minutes are for.
Yeah.
And we realized that we had not properly sent an agenda in and booked the room. Subcommittees are new to this committee, and so I think there was just a little process problem. Do we need to go through the full formality of scheduling a meeting?
Sort of
with a
ironic,
subcommittee?
isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Deeply ironic. So now is our time to talk about this and to feel shame.
What is the practical downside?
What we need to talk about is just the fact that subcommittees and working groups, or whatever you want to call them, are absolutely no different than the meeting. There is no dodge for open meeting laws. Like if you're getting together to do business, public business, you got to do it in the open. You got to schedule a meeting and
So
yeah.
the upshot is that we should have public record of there having been a meeting during that time, and it can be put into our minutes currently.
Yes.
So
That's the way we can
yes.
post facto. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
yes.
Right.
So you're already doing it. We actually, we knew that this was the case because we had talked with George Hall prior to even setting up these subcommittees, because there was some question on the committee of like, oh, can't we just meet wherever? And unfortunately the town attorney said, no, that's not the case. So we actually knew, we just fell down on the execution part of it. That's totally fine. And so going forward, if you've got a subcommittee, and there will probably be more going forward, just keep in mind that you got to go through the whole rigmarole of scheduling it with the town clerk and the selectman's office. And if you have questions, Phil or I or Glenn at this point can be your Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
Right.
tell
It's
you
not so much whether you reserve a room, it is whether you post the agenda. So
Right. 48 hours ahead.
48 hours.
Business hours.
48 hours ahead, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and holidays don't count. So if you got a Monday holiday, then it's really got to be in on Thursday, basically. Yeah, for the following Tuesday. And Ellen, the town clerk, is more than happy to walk you through it, answer any questions in her office, so you can always reach out to her if you have questions. Okay, You're gonna have to beat ourselves up for okay. So that's pretty much all we just needed to talk about, and we did. And then we had also talked about it in our subcommittee last time we met. So I think at this point everybody's been brought up to date on that. Okay, now on to the business of the night, which is first of all hearing from Mr. Petto and Mr. Mazzola. Who wants to start?
School just started.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my lead.
You're not going to tell us what happened over your summer vacation.
Well, yeah, we can back up a little bit. We did do quite a bit of work at Chenery this summer. As you know, as you've been reading, that the population in the district overall has been rising rapidly. Chenery in particular has been hit by that, evidenced by the modulars, and which are now full, and pretty much every room closet is full. But it was time that just beside the number of students, we just knew that we had to get some more resources in that building. So we did a couple of things. One is that I presented to the Capital Committee actually last spring, asking for funding for additional devices for that building. This was something new. I think I've stated before that typically the Capital Committee has not funded boxed devices. They've been great to us in other areas, but that was kind of something that was never traditionally done here in this town. But this year, they did fund some devices.
What type of devices?
These were Chromebooks,
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
HP Chromebooks.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They're the,
Compute.
yeah,
Computers.
yeah.
Okay.
So in between a tablet and a laptop, basically, in terms of kind of size and functionality. And one of the primary drivers of that, of course, is that now we're embarking on a second year of online MCAS testing. So we have been paper-based up until then. Now the Department of Secondary Education is now requiring and pushing us to go that way. So in order to do that, we needed to have additional devices because the testing window is actually fairly small, very narrow. And so if you take a increasing number of tests plus increasing number of students, it's easy math to do, and limited spaces, then there are just more resources. So they were very generous. I also asked for additional funds to rewire the network infrastructure at Chenery because it's 20 years old. It is Cat 5, not Cat 5e or anything resembling that. So as you can imagine, as we push things to web-based clients and things like that, and more wireless clients, the infrastructure is becoming a choke point. Even though the edge equipment was gig, the pipe itself was not. So we completed that this summer with 2 weeks to go.
I'm just curious, in a construction like that for the school, is there conduit installed in the first time through so that it's easy to upgrade network?
Yeah, so what we did is, of course, we had contractors come through to bid on it initially, and one of the conditions of their bid was that there was conduit, so we guaranteed that there would be conduit in those spaces, and we had already checked it out. So yes, what happened is they essentially used the existing Cat 5 cable, as kind of pull string. So the conduit became free before they put it back in. So we did some one-for-one replacements, but then we added a little bit of capacity because we were way over capacity to begin with. You know, think about 20 years ago, 1997, what did you have for computers? It was like put one jack here and one jack there and hope, and that was probably twice what we needed at the time. And a lot of the jacks were, the copper, they were oxidized, some are clean, they get broken, we fix them. So it came time, and I was very grateful to the committee. They saw right away that was a good use of the capital funds. So the project went very well. And, got a chance to clean up all the IDFs too, which were spaghetti, basically. you know what it's like. You need to patch something, find whatever's available and patch it. So it's all cleaned up now. And we also got a grant from the State Mass IT Department. We wrote a grant last year, and that allowed us to install 23 additional Wi-Fi locations at Chenery. So that finished the build out of the school. And then we also did another 35 locations district-wide, and the state picked up the cost for that. We also got matching grants through the E-rate program which I talked about before.
Yeah.
And so, for Chenery, it was typically a $100,000 project for the wiring plus building out a little bit of that extra Wi-Fi. It turned out to be, with the IT grant plus the discounts, it turned out to be about a $40,000 project.
Wow, that's great.
Maybe a little more because we had some cleanup work to do, but basically it was about
Does the
that.
district have like a grant writer who is doing that for you? You did that.
Yeah, I wrote that grant, yeah.
More responsible.
Yeah, and Janice Darius, assistant superintendent, after I write it, she generally reviews those and she has some good suggestions, and we got that. So Belmont was one of 12
That's great.
statewide that got it.
That was great.
And we don't typically get these grants because we don't meet a lot of certainly, the income thresholds. So we were very pleased about that. So that's done, wrapped up.
I have a question, Steve, about the electronicizing, if you wish, of the MCAS exams, both for kids and adults who take those standardized tests when they work with a paper version, they always have the opportunity to flip back if they want to review a question. Is that going to be possible? I don't know if you know this. This is a third order detail, but I mean, is that going to be possible on the computerized test that, you know, somebody gets to page 7 and says, really like to
Yeah, you
look
can
back.
review. And I'm not sure it's on all of the exams because they do math and ELA.
Yeah.
And I only have seen really the math one.
How about the math?
I think you can flip back and review those. You know, there is, you know, more to your point, there is a whole question about how do you norm the scores going from a paper-based to a computer-based. So the department they've had ways of kind of scaling that so that they hold harmless the districts in terms of their scores in the years that they move from the paper-based to a computer-based session, because typically students do worse probably the first time on
On the
computer-based.
computer-based, yeah.
One is anxiety, there's unfamiliarity of the format, there's, as you say, I'm used to flipping. Now, maybe I can flip, but it's a different flip. You know, I'm afraid of maybe punching the wrong thing.
So
So,
losing it.
How do you like write down the equations on in the sidebar?
yeah, they haven't,
Or do they give them scratch?
they can
give them
scratch paper
paper
still. Yeah, they haven't moved the exam yet where you can do, because then you have to have a tablet.
Yeah.
And they're just not there
So
yet.
how are the Chromebooks deployed? Are they just kept like in a closet until you need them, or are they being set up in a lab room? How's that working?
Well, I should say also, in addition to the capital, the foundation has also purchased some as well this year. So, but those were targeted to specific areas. So, for example, it was grade 6 math and ELA that came from the foundation. So those typically stay on the team level in the team classrooms.
Okay.
But all the other ones that came from the capital committee during a normal day, we have an Outlook calendar that the teachers book, just like the iPad card, same thing, or the labs. It's all booked online. So then what they do is when it's their time to get it, they just go and get it, and they can keep it for a few days, and then they'll return it.
I see.
Yeah. And then we went right into the opening of school. It's been actually probably the best opening we've had in many years.
What's the size of your entering freshman class at the high school? 350?
No, I don't know. It's probably 3. No, I think we already passed through our largest class. I think that was last year's sophomores, maybe. So it goes down. I think it goes down a little bit, but the big bubble is the incoming 5th graders.
Yeah.
So they're going from classes of, 3 something, call it 325 maybe. The latest numbers are 375 for this year's 5th graders.
And there ain't any room up there to put them.
And they already added with the override. They already added 2 to 3 more 5th grade teachers.
I'm talking about just the physical.
Yeah, where do you put
space.
them? Yeah.
Where do you put them? They're going to be putting up modular
There are, yeah.
classroom. Is that
They're already in
already?
modular classroom.
Are they already?
So anyway, those are the kind of things we've been dealing with, and I don't want to go on too long, but you probably saw announced Burbank's going to be housing modules next year.
Yes.
Oh, it's Burbank.
Yeah, because it has to be this intermediate step on the elementary side. The enrollments, I mean, we handle the enrollment numbers for the superintendent's office in conjunction with that office, and the numbers are just, kids are still registering, but it hit it particularly on the elementary level. So,
Yeah.
and they knew this bubble was coming. Kindergarten class is huge. So in anticipation of that, they'll put the modules behind Burbank. I think it's 4 classrooms, much like in Chenery.
Okay.
And then, I'm scared, Chenery was 6, it'll be 4. But then the hope is, of course, that the Chenery modules and the Burbank modules will buy time until the school committee decides on a new high school design, right? Because if they choose the new high school to be 7 through 12, then that takes care of a lot of the elementary pressure, and it relieves a lot of the Chenery pressure, right?
Right.
I don't advocate either way, but those are So the things that the superintendent's been proposing, and he's now doing his roadshow, you probably saw on the listserv, is 7 to 12, 8 to 12, and then 9, the traditional 9 to 12 high school. If you do 9 to 12, you're not solving anything
Right.
below the high school.
And would it be fourth graders going to Chenery now or something like
I
that?
don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
It would be something like that. There would be this, either you take, no, because you'd have to move a class
Something. Right.
somewhere.
Right. Either get kindergarten elsewhere or.
Yeah, maybe put all the kindergarten somewhere.
That's been talked about in the distant past. And obviously it didn't happen. It was talked about when people were discussing the design and the purpose of the then new to be Chenery Middle School.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think if you do anything else, certainly if you do just a 9 to 12, then you're looking at finding land to build another elementary school.
They can rebuild Payson Park.
Yeah. There you go.
I have two
Fire-
colleagues who went to
fireproof
elementary school
Yeah,
there.
exactly. I have friends who went there. Yeah.
Have you had any consultation with the high school building committee, or have IT stuff? has
I've
been a
met
part
with
of their
I've had a preliminary conversation with the architects.
Mhm.
And we're giving them all of our, technology plans in terms of wiring for the high school. The other thing that's, of course, a big concern that Dave and I have been talking about for a while is that a lot of the, all of the functions, town and school, run through the high school. It's one of our major hubs in town. So depending on what happens, whether it's a renovation or a tear down, I think either way, that network hub will have to be relocated somewhere. Now, the good thing is when Dave and I were working, this is really great with the kind of where our services group comes into the service level agreement that we did a few years ago, is that we, when they were pulling the line from Cambridge up to the tower site that Dave was overseeing, at that meeting, we asked that they drop off some fiber because they were coming down Concord Ave in front of the high school in anticipation that we might need to relocate the high school at some point.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
3 years ago now.
So that's going to make it a lot easier for the new building.
Depends what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of considerations. All I'm saying is there's going to be a lot of network considerations.
Yes,
And some costs built into that.
but you've been part of the conversation.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, next Tuesday and Wednesday is a full day vision, what they call visioning committee. This is going to be the chance for a second round with any district staff who wants to attend. I'll be attending for the 2 days. Superintendent will be there. And this is meeting with the architect. And basically we're just kind of getting those ideas out there. What do you need? What should education look like in a new building? Because that discussion, coupled with the parent surveys, the parent nights that they have, will inform whether it's a 7 to 12, 8 to 12, 9 to 12 school.
There's been no discussion apparently Dave sort of offered it in a jocular fashion, but there was a school on the Payson Park playground. It was an elementary school, but there's been no discussion about perhaps using that land for a kindergarten center or.
No, I think that's premature because I think my feeling and what I've been gathering from our meetings is that the proper thing to do is let the MSBA process, the Mass Building Authority, who governs the high school building project, let that play out and see what they're going to approve. Because until you don't know that, you don't know whether you even need to do something like that. So once they do that, then it goes to the voters.
And even if we were to decide to do that, that would just put us back in the MSBA queue with every other community, and
that
would be, you're pushing it out a number of years. So we're.
No, I was just wondering whether there's any discussion and considering the 7 through 12, 8 through 12, 9 through 12.
I think Steve, said, if they very narrowly scope the high school as just, it's going to be 9 through 12 replacement, then the town's very soon after that going to have to probably have a conversation about, where do we put K through 8?
You gotta, then it's another 10-year process with the MSBA.
Yeah.
Although sometimes they fund it themselves.
Steve, you said you met with the architect for the high school. Do they how does that technology outfitting for educational purposes, kind of how's the process for that work? Do they come to you to figure out how classrooms should be outfitted, or does the MSBA provide some guidelines, or what's the process, and how do you figure out, what's included in the build out of the high school? In other words, is the town going to then have to separately put smart boards into all the rooms, or does that come as part of the build out, assuming smart boards are even needed by the time this school is built?
So, well, think of it this way. This is going to be very much a curriculum-driven technology decision. So we're going to find out what the best educational setting is, and that will dictate in many ways what you get for furniture, what you get for smart boards, what you get for technology, what you do for wiring. It could look totally different than what we think of as a traditional high school setting in terms of the technology piece. So I'm going with a very open mind. I'm not expecting that the new high school is going to look like the current high school, nor what I want it to. But just in terms of expectations about what's wired, what's not wired, are we having smart boards, are we not having smart boards? So I'm going to reserve that. And then frankly, the other point is, these architects have done other high schools. So they'll bring, not only will they bring some of those suggestions, what worked and what didn't work, but we'll be touring other recently built high schools to see what they talk to their people. Hey, school's open. What's good and what do you really regret in doing? Because some things look very good when they're on the architectural drawings. Wow, let's do that. But then you get in there, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
So,
Gonna visit Newton.
Newton's too old. That building's been, Newton North.
The brand, what I could still consider the brand new Newton,
That's
the cost
It's only a few years old.
cost lots of money.
The one they rebuilt for like $150 million.
I think it was like 2005 or 6.
It seems like just yesterday that I was reading all the protests in the paper.
10 years old.
I don't know if you've ever been in it, but the status center.
I'd like to think the time does not fly.
The epitome of a cool looking building that's completely non-functional.
My lord.
It's just a mess.
I've been to some swim meets there, but otherwise I haven't. So.
Oh, okay.
So I think as we get, my goal was as we get farther along in the process, that I'd like to bring some of that back to this group. And I certainly encourage you to go to the anything that's open to the public in terms of the high school project. But I think within this group, we'll be having many more discussions about where we are and what it looks like.
Yes.
Along those lines, there is a high school building committee presentation of some sort coming up.
Yeah, there are a series of hearings coming up.
No, but I mean, there's one coming up, I think, in a few weeks, is there?
Next Tuesday.
Next week.
Is it next week?
Next Tuesday, the
Okay,
19th.
that's what I thought.
It's 2010. 2010.
It's not that long ago.
Let the record show that Newton North is built.
So Steve, you made a comment that this was one of the smoothest openings in years. What's the context?
I think we're just getting better and smarter at some stuff.
So you mean like iPad roll? I'm trying to figure out what particular things.
You're absolutely right. Every year that we're in the program, like the iPad program, it just, first of all, the technology, the deployment tools get better and better. So all of that is much smoother. I mean, it was just night and day compared to even 2 years ago. I was able to bring on some additional contract help beyond probably what we had last year. And the other thing we did is besides the high school, the Chenery wiring project, which I ran, we didn't really do any kind of really big rollout projects. We're going to do a Windows 10 rollout, but we weren't ready in time. So instead of trying to force that, we're going to let it go, and we'll get to that. But so I think really having some really good expectations of what we can accomplish, and understanding that we really don't have 3 months. We basically have maybe 9 weeks, plus people on vacation, plus vendors not delivering product on time, plus you've all been involved with projects. And if you schedule it right to the to the end, you're asking for trouble.
And scheduling over the summer is notoriously
Right.
tricky.
Yeah,
Just those reasons, yeah.
exactly. So, and then also 2 years ago, we did a lot of preventative maintenance on the smart boards. We had a contract come through and kind of do all the firmware updates and all that stuff. And that was all the stuff that was really kind of was an issue at the Open School because the stuff sat there all summer, got unplugged, and then everything got plugged back in. And it's USB stuff, it's this power. So having all that stuff up to snuff, having all the machines up to snuff, cut down on the
Support calls.
yeah, kind of the real, nothing that's really terribly, but if you're the teacher, it's impactful. But there's just a lot of it. So I think as we were able to reduce some of that, was
I have a couple of comments.
Will the modular units, do those all get smart boards as well? Okay. Go ahead.
So these may be mostly anecdotal, but it seems like there's a new system that they use for sending out email from some of the high school programs, the Naviance system that I think Rediker uses. Does that sound familiar at all? I think those are two separate things.
Yeah, two separate.
Naviance is a thing for college.
Right.
And Rediker is the new deadline.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe, I'll keep going anyway. So at the beginning of sometime over the summer, we got an email saying, click here and enter your information, about your student. And we did that. And then my wife kept getting emails from them and I never got any email, even though we put both emails in the form. And that was, concerning because my wife would say, hey, why didn't you do this thing? I never heard of it. So we checked, both our emails were in there, but I wasn't getting any emails. They weren't going into my spam box. They were just never going anywhere. So finally we contacted the high schools this morning and now we're getting the emails. But there was no indication that anything had gone wrong. I don't know if we're supposed to put a comma in between our email addresses or what have you. For us, it's not too much of a problem because if my wife gets it, she'll share it with me most of the time. But if you had a family where they were going through separation or something like that, it could actually be kind of an issue if only one person was getting the email. I don't know if you've heard this from anyone else or whether just a local mistake that we made somehow.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, as you know, throughout the year, all of the email systems get more and more hardened. And I'm not saying that you were causing anything that would have caused our system to reject it. I'm just saying that there's just more and more places where we do hear from others who say, hey, I didn't get this email or whatever. And sometimes it's because some of the systems are just rejecting them. And we finally figured it out, but you're right. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So, so we've been making efforts with our vendors too to ensure that they're on these lists where they get pre-approved by various internet service providers and their emails get whitelisted and things like that. But the landscape has, particularly this year, it seems to us, is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to keep all of those systems delivering email consistently 100% of the time. Again, I'm not sure if it was yours. I'm going to look into. I'll contact the high school office and find out exactly what, because I'm interested in finding out why yours would be an issue.
Both of our email addresses, they're both Gmail accounts, so it's not that Gmail is rejected.
There is one system, I think the one used for sports registration, I don't know if this is involved, that only sends the one email address. So I remember that I believe that's intentionally done to make sure that, one parent is responsible or something like that. But there was one, I think there's at least one system that's used by high school that intentionally, even though both parents are in there, it only routes the emails to one to avoid duplication of form filling or something.
Right, so, and that's the Rediker system. So that one where we ask you to update your students' information, and then, right, there's an ancillary form around athletics and some other stuff that we collect data on. I mean, the nice thing has been, you know, we've gone from secretaries have to enter 100 data points per child to 9 now, because it's all fed in electronically. The downside is that there may be some emails that get skipped or something. But you're right, Jim. What also happens is we deliberately only send it to what's in the record is the primary contact. Could be the mother or the father. If it's a separated household, then they're both considered to be primary contacts, if they're just different addresses. But you're right, that could lead to some confusion. If you're always, like if the lister, you're always getting to both, and in Naviance, you're always getting from both, and then you get something from this system and it's only to the one. I can see how you can see that there might be some, they'll look like there's inconsistencies. But what we don't want to do is send it out to both parents and then one person update it and then the next, so they do it and the next person when they come in is going to override.
Right, but that's selective by the particular thing. So I know when they sent out like report cards through Rediker last year, both Janet and I got those messages, but there were probably some that only I got because mine was listed as the primary.
Right. Right.
Well, that was the giveaway in our case because I got a text from my wife saying, you know, don't bother, I already updated it. Updated what?
I usually just say thanks. I don't go on that rabbit hole.
Oh, this was the day the Equifax thing broke. So tell me what you updated. Tell me. What are you talking about?
You don't just have like the auto response, like got it or thanks,
Right.
I'm on it.
The little emoji.
Steve, I had a question on, you mentioned the Chromebook purchase from capital budget and the wiring. So 2 questions. One is, so in the upcoming year, do you anticipate more capital budget might be funding some other initiatives, and if so, what? And the other would be, where do you see things going vis-a-vis Chromebooks versus iPads, and you know where the district's needs and investments are going to be?
Well, as far as the capital committee goes, it's really kind of early to say what the requests may be for a couple of reasons. One is because usually as a school district, we pool everything first before we present to the capital committee, so that, because of course they ask for a rank order. Mm-hmm. So we try to be judicious in what is being asked for and when it's being asked for and things like that. I'm sure Dave does the same thing. And however, when I was at the last capital committee meeting, we were talking about the MCAS. I did also mention that we're only kind of in the first wave of the MCAS rollout, because we only did
For testing.
Right, we only online testing. We only did 3 grades. Yeah. We're going to have to add all of Channery, another 4th grade, and then in 2019 the 10th grade at the high school. So there's 2 more years of this kind of. Now whether that's capital or not, I haven't even been there yet. We have to look at, do another review of all the resources that are available. We may be looking at, you know, we're also completing our assessment of the other schools in terms of their wiring. So that may come up. Maybe too small of a job. Most of it's done, but it may come up. And in terms of the device choice and all that, the iPad versus Chromebook versus laptop versus desktop, that's really what the discussion is. Mm-hmm. When we did the survey of staff last year, we did the K-12 survey, right, and we asked a number of things, but one was, you know, what device do you prefer? And we broke it down by elementary, Chenery, and the high school. And based on that, we put together a plan on where, for example, where do the 12th grade iPads go once we get them back. We just actually delivered those to all the K2 classrooms last week. Mm-hmm. So they were repositioned for their 6th year, going to the 6th year of use. Mm-hmm. But in the survey, for example, on the elementary and you know, even at Cherry, you know, there's still a lot of strong support for using the iPads. I'm sorry, it was a CADE survey. We didn't do the high school because we had done something else.
Well, you wanted to get all four, I think you wanted to get all four grades having used iPads already, if I remember that was the discussion, right?
And we had done a focus groups with the high school because it was a different animal.
Right.
So we didn't feel, we did the survey data with the high school faculty, but we felt as though because it was such a different use pattern that we felt as though focus groups would get us more rich data.
Yeah.
Which we did. So
could we, this committee would probably want to enjoy seeing that survey. You have that written up, don't you? You have like a PowerPoint presentation on it?
On the
K8 technologies.
Yeah, I'll have to look at what format. I'm trying to think of who we presented to last. But
Was that FBE?
it must have been FB.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it's not too much trouble, but.
yeah, let me talk to that all gets released out of the superintendent's office.
Yeah.
So let me find out what the disposition of that is, and because some of it was in conjunction with the foundation, doing the survey itself. So I can't say right sitting here that that's something that would be released generally.
Okay.
Part of
Yeah, check with John
recognition by the foundation.
yeah, Janice and see if they're open to it.
Is it fair to say that this is sort of the first generation of students who are going through our school system with iPad access and these sort of devices, or has it been in effect a while?
Well, the high school, this year was the first graduating class.
Okay, right. It's
Right.
like 4 years.
2017 was.
2017.
Yeah.
That was Molly's class.
Right.
Because just to back step from that, I'm wondering if there's plans or some thinking about, like, do we obsolesce the devices, right, and what the sort of life cycle is?
Well,
because it's a pretty big capital investment, right? And I know with the foundation, I assume they're not thinking like, oh, in 5 years we got to redo that grant. Right?
no, they've been out for a year now.
Yeah.
A full year now.
Right.
So what we do is, because when we first embarked on the program, there wasn't a lot of good data as to how long those devices will last.
Right.
Now, as I said, we just deployed a couple hundred of them to the K2 classrooms, 5 per classroom. And they're still, we put them through their paces and they're still functioning really well. The limitation is going to be the iOS.
Yes. Right.
Because for those units, 935 is the end of the road. The good news is that with this year's graduating class, they are now on the newer chipset. They go to the smaller Lightning connectors, so those will take the 10 version of the iOS.
Right.
So we're just kind of just ahead of the obsolescence of the iOS and the hardware.
Okay.
So I can't answer your question in terms of how long it'll last, but
Yeah.
we know that they will go 6 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably after this year is done, we'll probably know.
Molly's was the first one they started giving to the entire class. I remember Evan, there was like a small group in a particular class that got it, and I think they repeated that the year after.
Right, that was the year before,
Yeah,
right.
There's a pilot program.
yeah, they did that for like 2 years, I guess. So I remember there was some group in Evan's grade, although he wasn't part of it.
Right.
2015.
And so we'll, we continue to evaluate devices, not just at the high school, but throughout. And for all devices, because frankly, the Chromebooks, they have a pretty good price point, but there's a lot of tales, especially on my director's list statewide, about a lot of hardware failures, Wi-Fi issues, some management issues, although the tools are getting much better.
Yeah.
So let's put it this way, I wouldn't have wanted to be the first Chromebook rollout, because that was pretty disastrous.
Okay.
And a lot of the software you get isn't available to it yet, as I understand still.
Yeah.
The case.
Right, I mean, that's been one of the main, I think, obstacles is there are, for the iOS and Apple, there are a lot of education-specific tools and programs that just don't, most of them don't translate over into iOS and Android.
Yeah.
So
So the whole question about the devices is ongoing.
Okay,
Chrome,
thanks.
Chrome.
Have you noticed a shift in textbooks and things like that actually being shifted over to, I know when we talked about this probably 2-3 years ago, you said as the curriculum was phased out, which would take a number of years, then probably new curriculum would be delivered, new books would be delivered electronically. Are you seeing that happen as anticipated, or is it pretty much the same way it's been?
You know, it's funny, it ebbs and flows. Because remember, we typically hang on to a textbook for 10 or 15 years, so that window is quite long. However, you know, we're doing the 2 of the social studies courses, actually 3 now. We adopted a new one this year, electronic book. I just sent out just today the AP environmental science book electronically, so they should have gotten it today.
Pre-calc is
Yeah, there's
in
a,
high school.
yeah, there's some that are done within departments
Right.
that I'm just on the periphery because it doesn't really involve us. Latin used to do it, but they dropped it because I think they were switching publishers or something. The publisher, the new one didn't have what they wanted electronically.
So they go back to a paper.
I don't think they ever really had a text because it's Latin. You know.
It's also Mr. Dunn. So.
Mr. Dunn, I'm one of his neighbors. I'm right around the corner from him.
Oh, is that true?
Oh yeah. No, I mean in the classroom. not at home, but.
Mr. Dunn is, I mean, my kids both have it and they have a great time.
He does a great job. Yeah.
He does it his way.
He does.
Does it his way.
Doesn't use the iPads. He makes a point of saying, we had back to school night last night. So
Excuse me?
It was back to school night last night, and my older daughter is a big fan of Mr. Dunn.
They all love Mr. Dunn.
Yeah. And he sort of says like, I don't do iPads.
He also got a late start in teaching, so one of the last, and this will only take a minute, the last sort of parent-teacher sessions we went to, which would have been with my son, you know, they were, I don't know how this came up, but he said, oh yeah, I've still got a long way to go. And he looked out at the railroad track, he said, they're probably going to bury me out by the tracks. You have to know this gentleman. Yeah, he's great.
So other questions for Steve?
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
That's all I can remember at this point.
That's why it's getting later.
Mr. Pell?
I've been on vacation for 2 weeks.
Where did you
I don't remember anything.
You were good or just kick off?
No,
You must have said everything else very well because the town has collapsed, right?
That's all right. The department's runs fine. I was in touch all the time, but
Yes.
no, that's it.
There you go. Get those all
Yes,
the
I
time.
know my pen's there. Jeez. Yeah, so I went to a wedding for my nephews in Vermont, and then from there went to Camden, Maine.
That was nice.
Just got back last night before last. So let's see. One of the things I recommend people take a look at is in the town clerk's office on the counter is a PC for public records requests.
Oh.
So someone can come walk in. Matter of fact, the number of people using it today, and you don't have to log in. It's right there. You just enter in your information for your records request, so that everything is being kept track of. And within the departments, it goes through each. In each department, there's a person who's in charge of records requests within that department, and they get an email, they get a notification that there's a records request if it pertains to them. All the documentation, all documents, everything is through that. It sends the information to the requester. Some of them are public requests. I think it shows right now, there's 123 requests total since we put it in place in July. And 23 of them are public, the rest are all private, so.
What constitutes a private
request?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I think the requester can decide whether they want it to be public or not.
In other words, they're requesting public records, but they don't necessarily have to reveal their identity.
Reveal it, right, exactly.
Why would anybody want it otherwise?
Sending a message.
So.
Right.
I suppose.
So it's been working well. We've got the police department using it, all the town departments using it, and just today it was sent over to the school department to get them on board.
So what did that require kind of behind the scenes? Was it just kind of writing up the application in the workflow, or?
Actually, it's a hosted system, and they
Do it all.
came to us and they do it all. The town clerk had to specify, had to configure it.
Right, because there are both electronic and paper records that are indexable on this, right?
So you mentioned that there's a PC in the clerk's office to facilitate the public, but is it accessible outside of that, or is it?
Oh yeah, no, it's
Okay.
on the website. There's a link on the
Okay.
website. If you go to public records request, just click that and away you go.
Fantastic.
What's the cost per request? Or is there?
I don't know. The cost of the system total is.
No, more to the end user. I mean, is it like to?
Oh, to the end user?
Yeah, like if I make a request, is it like $10 per request or something?
It depends solely on the request.
Okay.
Most of them are,
Because the first 2 hours are totally free.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's.
It's based on the amount of work that it requires,
Okay.
so I think it's 4 hours are free. Is that right, or 2 hours?
The first 2 are free.
2, yeah.
Okay.
So it depends, like you said, yeah.
So this is 4 hours of a clerk's time or in the town clerk's office?
Yes, of anyone's time. So let's say it's a request that came through and it's supposed to be, it's the planning board or something, or the
Really?
community development, then 2 hours of their time is.
What's the
name of the vendor?
It's called Next Request.
There we
And I
go.
see what you mean by public. You can actually go on the town website and see, so there's 21 requests outstanding, and you can see what they are.
Is
A
that
copy of retail food establishment permit for Slaytoon Convenience Store at 62 Concord Avenue. Please send a copy of the decision to deny the request for the application for case 15-34. Oh, wow.
There's a
List
lot
of
of
all
work.
registered dog and cat owners.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that went into
Open
it.
record laws are a good thing. That's great.
Yeah.
What was the workflow before? Was it all just
Paper-based.
call the?
Paper-based,
Yeah.
there was, it would come into whoever, let's say it came into the town clerk's office and say, oh, this belongs to, the inspectors or something like that. And she'd send an email over to,
Forward it, yeah.
and say, hey, you gotta do this. And,
Yeah.
But because of the way the records law is now set, the town clerk is designated as the public records officer. She's responsible for everything.
Mhm.
So she has to, so that's why, she found just in July when the records law changed, or they made some changes to it, and before we had the system in place, she was spending all of her time every day on public records requests and couldn't do anything else because they ramped right up when the law changed. People were testing. When we got some wild stuff, people, like all the, think of something widespread, but and it's just
Salaries.
yeah.
Can we pop back a second? There's a request for all the licensed dog and cat owners in the town?
So it sounds to me that someone's using that for commercial purposes, and they're gonna now spam us all with advertisements.
Well,
My guess.
I think, isn't that, maybe
there
this is an
that's a
executive
PII
session topic, but there's an important security concern with information of this kind.
So
Depends on
seemingly,
what's considered a public record, I guess. Yeah.
seemingly the public requests, I'm just judging by the actual responses are also public. So here's the list of cat owners.
Okay.
Yes, the data.
Yeah, all the data's there.
But I didn't request it, but somebody else did,
Right,
so it was
so if you.
made available through the system, so.
And that would be irrespective of whether the requester wanted it public or private, correct?
Well, maybe that's.
Or maybe that
No,
means,
that's it.
that's it. It's not just the identity of the requester, it's the
It's
nature.
it's the request itself and all the
Okay.
information pertaining to it, yes.
This is an area that, is not obviously unique to Belmont, where, the public records laws and public information, was previously you'd have to, you wanted property information, property tax, you go into the community and it just didn't scale. And now obviously Redfin, Zillow, it's all just at your fingertips. But so, for example, I'm actually working on a story right now about student directory information at colleges and universities. And I think maybe even K through 12, although I'm not sure. But colleges and universities basically direct student directory information, which includes their email, their mailing address, their name, their birth date, if they're on a sports team, their height and weight, is all public information, and they will give it to you if you ask for it.
Wait a minute, at a private university, this is considered to be public information? I seriously doubt that.
No, at a private
Yeah.
university it is not, but
At
at a public university it is.
Unless they get federal funding.
But so this is all under FERPA, which is the federal law,
Mhm.
right? I think private universities are a little bit more protective of it, but, I looked at, for example, UMass, I did a FOIA request at UMass, and, most of the companies requesting it are, military, so military recruitment, student loan companies that do student loans and service student loans. But, Amazon got all the data on every, matriculated UMass student, and there are obviously credit card companies and so on. And it's kind of a hole in the, the FERPA law, the federal law really protects the students' grades and maybe what courses they're taking. And that's about it. All that other stuff, what we would consider PII, is public information from their standpoint. And you're talking tens of thousands, like they'll do requests for 50,000 student records.
Yeah,
So
well,
what do you want? You want us to email it to you? Do you want us to,
This may have changed. I mean, my knowledge of such things is, a decade out of date at this point, but I know that this was certainly not the case 10 years ago.
Really?
And,
I mean, did the law pass?
It probably was.
You
It
never
was.
heard?
It was.
It was, yeah. Because people didn't, it wasn't, as widely.
well, maybe it's college to college or something like that, but we would never let that stuff out of our site at Harvard. I know this for a fact because.
Yeah. So some of this stuff is for research purposes. So some of the people requesting it might be departments within the university or within the broader university community that are doing research on undergraduate or graduate students or something like that. So there are those requests. I mean, I talked to Northeastern about this, and I talked to UMass and Texas A&M. Northeastern said, we don't generally give that information out, and if we get requests from commercial entities, by and large, we reject them. We don't respond to them. But if they're from researchers and so on, however, they don't actually keep records of what they reject and why either. So while they say they don't give that information out, it's basically impossible to verify that they don't. And the government doesn't require them to keep records of who's asking for the information or how they're disposing of those requests. So it's a real fishy area, you'd think, because, I'm like you, I'm like, that's PII. You could easily use that for phishing attacks, tailored attacks, identity theft, But, the laws were written in 1974 is when FERPA was written. Hasn't really been updated since then. So this is, and we run into this with public records laws as well, which is cat owners, it's a question. What do we want to, what information should we shield and protect? Or at least notify you, right? Like that's the other thing. Okay, we'll give it out because it's a public record, but we're also gonna let the person who's affected by it know that this information was requested about them. So when they start getting people calling them and asking about their cat. They don't know why.
Well, I'm less concerned about spam than I am about security. So basically, when you're giving out a list of everyone in the town who has a licensed dog, you're giving out a list of everyone who has a biological burglar alarm.
Yep.
And that
Yes.
seems like a sensitive thing.
Yes, yes. So you do the opposite of that is everyone who doesn't have a dog, right?
Well, I mean, this you know,
Yeah.
logic says you know one, you know the other.
Right.
This is the kind of dog too, so you can tell how scared.
Oh, really?
How scared to be.
Wow, there we go.
As long as it doesn't have the dog's name.
That would be my favorite snack.
That would be our security line.
You know, maybe it was the post office that,
I think the residents,
asked for the information to help their mail records, okay?
judging by the name field in here, has
The dog's there.
dog's name, Primrose,
I'm sure.
Hippo, Coco.
So you can't judge a dog by its name.
Do a sword. What's the most popular dog's name in Belmont? Or cat's name?
Yeah.
Great office.
Is it data downloadable?
Only that's okay.
That's a whole new realm of database reporting. We can dig into some of these systems.
Oh, may I change the subject for one question?
No, I'm sorry.
To what extent does the town utilize social security numbers for identification for anything?
The only tax records,
Property taxes, right?
property taxes, and the town.
Car
pays,
ownership? Car.
excise
Excess taxes
yes,
as
yeah,
well,
yeah.
Just wondering, are there vectors for fraud with the Equifax leakage of social security numbers? And are we safeguarding against that? And so I'll tell a story, which is that I just got called by Belmont Savings, and they said about that account you're opening that you're going to link to your home equity line of credit. Kind of curious how you have an address in Easton, Massachusetts.
Wow.
So this is you know, and then the very next day the Equifax breach was made public. So I'm just wondering, you know, I mean, thankfully Belmont Savings was diligent and spotted that. But what are we doing as a town for? I mean, is there anything that we're doing, or is there something like this that we should be?
So
I
I can answer that question separately.
Yeah.
Is this something we want to have on the mic?
Oh, I see. That's a good point. Yeah. So would like the kind of
One of the recommended approaches, or one of the recommended personal things to do as a result of the Equifax breach is actually to put a fraud alert on your own credit ratings.
For what?
Put a fraud alert on your own credit ratings.
Yeah.
So,
and
no, it's something that any citizen can do.
Yep.
It's a 90-day alert. That's it's syndicated among the 3 credit rating agencies. And what happens is, if there's a request for your credit, you get notified of it. And that typically happens if someone's trying to open a loan or do sort of any financial transaction.
Just for my own personal edification, everybody else, how do you do it?
There's a link you can go to.
Yeah, any one of the
And if you do it at one, it's
Yes,
only
you do it at one place.
So Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax all have links to.
I wouldn't use Equifax.
Right.
So
I went to Experian.
And the term is
fraud alert.
Or credit hold.
You can also do it
The
on
only
the
downside is it only
FTC
lasts
site.
90 days if you don't remember to renew it.
Well, if you do go to open a line of credit, you know, you go to Jordan's or something and want to open a line of credit to buy furniture or something like that, then it's gonna.
Take a little
Not for
longer.
Well, for the fraud alert, if you freeze, that's a different story.
You don't think the fraud alert would complicate that? Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
Because the fraud alert is just, they're telling you somebody's asking.
Somebody's asking.
They're not stopping anybody from asking.
Right.
They're not stopping
Okay.
a decision.
Okay, I get it.
All the fraud
It's
alert
just a
does is it
notification.
tells you that something happened.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
you're talking to somebody who's been a victim of identity theft. I even have.
Yeah, I have as well, yeah.
And I've been dealing with this for a while. Yeah,
Tax
now I have, tax
Yeah,
ID
me
theft.
too, yeah.
So now I got to go back and redo all my credit freezes. I had done it before, and then when we were doing student stuff, I unfroze it and I was too lazy to put it back on. Now I've got an incentive to not be lazy.
So, yeah, I don't know if it's also, I mean, somebody said change your social security number. I think there's gonna be a rash of that if that.
It's almost impossible.
If you go to Experian.com, there's a link right at the top of the page.
Yeah.
Find out how Experian can help, and then there's a link to the blog.
You've got to be careful of Experience offers to help, right? Because they've got another thing to help. I think it's like a free credit monitoring service, but if you sign up for that, you waive your rights to be part of the class action suit.
That's Equifax.
Yeah, that's that.
Oh, that's Equifax. I apologize. Right.
No, but
Although I think they got beat up over that
Yeah.
one pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole, I mean, it's like the extortion racket. We pay us and we'll make things so that it'd be a shame if your place burned down, and we'll pay us and we'll make sure it doesn't burn down.
It's a nice
Because we won't do it.
Me too.
So, I mean,
They really bundled the responsibility.
My question, probably we shouldn't have a response now, but I mean, are you guys thinking about that?
Absolutely.
Safe.
I will tell you this, any of that information is encrypted on any of our systems. If it is on any of our systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always wonder if we should have some kind of I know we're having a thing in October, but with this whole Equifax thing, we want to have a kind of a public discussion or something about this, just to answer people's questions, or kind of some of the same questions that are coming up here.
I think identity theft is going to be more commonplace.
Yeah.
And it's probably something that you want to get ahead of and react quickly to.
Yeah.
So if the more educated our population is about that, the better.
We'll reach out to the library and see if they want to, I don't know, what do you think? What would be the best way to do it?
Well, I know the police already do something.
Do they?
They do presentations already on it.
Yeah, no, I'm talking specifically about this.
About this particular.
About Equifax.
Well,
kind of,
I sent it
We
out.
can certainly put that on the agenda for this week.
Right. We're going to get to it, but I'll jump ahead a little bit. We are, one of the subcommittee that Charlie, Dan, and myself are on, is organizing a public talk for late October. And it was going to be sort of an informal discussion around, public safety, around, IT security, right? So some of the things we had talked about in our one-on-one meetings. But the speaker is actually one of my colleagues who's actually a former intelligence officer. And he's been doing cybersecurity for a while. But we still need to kind of write up what exactly our agenda is going to be. But the idea was that it would be a fairly informal discussion so that we could involve the audience. And it would be sort of loosely focused on 2 or 3 topics, one of which is a topic in the news. So right now it's Equifax. It could be, 4 weeks from now, it could be something else, but something that's topical that, we could talk about what it really means and what's the practical implications of it. And then some of the sort of more basic, good hygiene around passwords or, other such topics that, a home user might be interested in.
And Glenn, we're talking at the library on September 23rd.
Right, and that's yet again a different thing as well, right?
Phishing and ransomware.
Right, that's right. That's another topic, right? It's the ransomware, because that was very, very big a few weeks ago.
Do you want to distribute a copy of the flyer?
Yeah, although, we're in the middle of a report, so.
Afterwards.
And I apologize, I have to get going. It's a slight homework emergency.
Matt?
Yes. Yeah, not for myself. But thanks.
All right. See you.
Okay.
See you.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Good luck. So, let's see, what else? The town clerk, also working with the town clerk on automating minutes and agendas, and also working with Belmont Media Center. I had a meeting with Jeff a few weeks ago about taking the videos and indexing them to go along with the agendas.
Great.
So we've reviewed, we've looked at one vendor so far, we've got another one we're going to be looking at.
That'd be amazing.
So, and yeah, so I have it all up on the website, so that'd be nice.
And right now, the committees that are filmed are planning, selectmen, school, and warrant.
Warrant, yes.
Capital budget's not.
Capital budget is not.
Any particular reason for that? I mean,
I think it's a staff, I guess.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just funding camera people.
okay.
Dave, when you say indexing, do you mean like if the agenda has 10 items on it, saying item 3 is 15 minutes into the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
And are those videos part of the public record? So you could submit a request for the video of the meeting?
No, the videos are held by the media center.
Okay.
And hosted hosted and served up by the media center. So the media center is not,
A public records body.
well, it's not a town body either.
Right.
It's an independent corporation.
Though these, because they are being taken by a town, are, in fact, I do need to figure out how to transfer them to
Town assets.
Helen? You?
Good question.
I just went out and created a big problem for you.
Say,
Because that means they need to be archived too.
Yeah, they did.
So.
So hundreds of years
I
from
don't think YouTube wants to. Yeah, so, yeah, good question.
Well, why do we distinguish between the?
because these are created by a public body. These are public documents.
Well, created, what do you mean by created by? I mean, Jeff Hansel and, the media center's personnel sits in a special room in the selectman's office and mans the camera,
But
okay. you don't have
Jeff
somebody-
works for Belmont Media Center and does videos of the property.
I see
Media
I see what Jonathan's saying though. It doesn't seem like there should be that much of a
Yeah,
difference.
is the only distinction that you're pushing the buttons.
For example, if I walked into the selectmen's room and decided to videotape the selectmen's meeting, and just by virtue of that, it doesn't mean that video is property of the town of Belmont, it's my property.
Right. Well, so what's this with this camera? Because you're pushing the button as the
Well, because I'm
chair.
a appointed public official.
So then you answered my question, yes.
Yes.
The reason is
Jeff
because you're
Hansel's
pushing,
on.
because
Yes.
you're pushing the button.
That's right. In my capacity, not just me, because I might go
Yeah,
to the selectmen as a private citizen and do it.
but you're doing
But
an official.
right now I'm doing it in an official capacity. Right.
It's listed on the agenda.
And it's on the agenda. So that is the difference.
It's fine, fine.
It is.
Sorry, Dave.
That's okay. Let's see, some other things we're doing. Well, we're finally catching up on our replacement of our desktop machines because we were lagging behind a couple of years there. Let's see, we are fine tuning our Splunk installation, which Splunk is our log. For those who don't know, it's takes all the server logs, and depending on the criteria we set up,
It's incredibly expensive, but it's awesome.
does all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So we just got a temporary license to see exactly how much we would need.
Yeah.
And we blew away by 5 times what we currently have from one application.
Is it, so it's metered based on number of logs?
Yeah.
Based on volume of
Volume
data.
per day. Volume of data. Yeah, per day.
Yeah. There's lots of people who find issue with that model.
I started our security awareness program, which was an interesting, sent out a phishing email
Oh,
to
great.
get a baseline.
And you used Know before, is that?
I used Know before.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was, nobody clicked on anything.
Were you disappointed?
The reason why
They didn't get the email.
is because, I'd say about half a dozen people called tech support, and I didn't tell them.
Right.
So they told people, oh, that's a phishing email, delete it. And of course, they told
Yeah,
everybody in
word
the
of
department,
mouth.
don't do it, just delete it. IT said that's no good. Don't do it. So
Guess
I'm
that's
sending
good.
out,
That's a
so
pass.
I'm gonna do another, well, not really. I'm gonna do another one that's gonna be not so easily identified as a
Yeah.
phishing email. So, anyway,
Hillary Clinton's campaign,
we also evaluated a number of patching softwares and finally and settled on one, and we're using that. It's GFI LandGuard, and it's we've been adding things to it. It's working well. I think this can go on. We are redoing our security system in town,
Sorry.
and that's in process. Replacing cameras, replacing DVRs, etc., and locking it down. We've been planning we have a big Munis upgrade coming up, and it's going to be done in the beginning of December. So right now it's all planning, testing, and so forth, and then that'll get completed. Let's see, the health department, they had a system they were using for all their restaurant inspections and so forth, and it was fairly expensive and very unfriendly to use. We've actually pulled all that data into our GIS and into our permitting system, so now the health department is part of the permitting system in town. So the community development can see when they issue like a dumpster permit, they don't have to get separate emails or anything, they can just look in the system and see. And along that lines too, we are pulling in the fire department very soon in all the permitting too. So, and speaking of the fire department, we just finished taking their incident response system and their vehicle maintenance system and one other one, I can't remember what it is, and pulled it into a hosted system now, a company called Zoll. So all those servers are no longer running in the town. We are currently working on moving another one of their systems, their staffing system, to do all their scheduling and so forth. Telestaff it's called. Actually, it's Kronos. Kronos the company. So it's and that we're moving to Kronos' cloud.
Which one is that? Sorry, it's HR.
No, the fire.
Fire department. Yeah.
We completed a flyover. We had a company called Sewell do a flyover for us because our GIS data was 8 years old. And they completed that at the end of April, and we got the data back from them, and now
Is that a literal flyover?
that's a little flyover. Yep. Plane, make sure that those leaves on the trees, and it's down to resolution is down to 3 inches.
Wow.
So from out in space, you can see that.
The fire department, they don't have their own IT person. That's totally managed by the town.
That's managed by us, yes. The next thing we're doing is we're going out to bid to have planimetrics be produced, which is like all the contours, so that we can use it to calculate water runoff and things like that, which the state's now requiring towns to charge or to pay the amount of runoff they have. So there's formulas so that residents can be, if you've got to add a driveway or add a building with a roof, then we just started our fiber assessment. We met with the vendor a couple weeks ago and getting that project going. That's our capital project.
Right.
What was it? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Fiber assessment.
Oh, the fiber.
Yeah. So we'll know how to move the hubs from.
This is funded through the capital.
This is capital, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It was approved at the town meeting, I think, in June.
And so this was just the first of 3 stages. The next one will be engineering, and then the following one will be actual construction. So over 3 years. The something I heard about, I guess there's something going on with the library. So that might be in the mix along with the high school at the same time.
Sure, let's do it all at the same time.
Yeah, what the heck? You know, it's interesting, we had the
Architect
architect.
moving the library to the car.
Right.
Hey, what's the IT situation down there?
That's great.
For the workstation?
Did you ever see the picture of the cat inside of a PC?
Yeah.
And it says, "I'm from tech support." That's what we got down there. The architect for the high school building project had a meeting a couple weeks ago where they had all the department heads from the town come in and talk about things. And off to the side, we were talking about the IT requirements. And apparently they had no idea. Well, they had an idea because Steve had already met with them and talked to them, but they were not used to town and school being combined. They just thought all the IT at the school, you know, the fiber, the network, the ISPs and everything was just for school, for school.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, their eyes were open pretty wide when they realized that, oh my goodness, we gotta be careful. We can't just shut down the school. We gotta take care of the town too. So, let's see, what else? We are vetting a couple of vendors for our Office 365 migration. We picked a couple. Anybody here at Liftoff? Okay, they're an outfit from Maryland. And
Hadn't you already, had you just moved email over?
we just moved email.
Okay, that's right.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the rest of the.
This is the rest of it, yes. As a matter of fact, it turns out our email is not in the government space.
Okay.
So we've got to redo our whole thing.
What does that mean?
It means it's when you're in Microsoft's government space, it's a whole different location servers and whole different set of rules.
So when they
and so forth.
migrated you, they
Migrated us to an enterprise.
Enterprise.
No, yeah. They told us it was government.
Okay.
So.
Is that going to be transparent to you or?
It will not be transparent to IT, it'll be transparent to the users.
Yeah, okay. But there's work
There's
on your
a lot of work we have.
How did you discover that they'd done this incorrectly?
The vendor, this Liftoff vendor, asked some questions and we said, well, let me check on that. And when we checked on our Azure space and our Federation servers and so forth, we found out,
We're in the wrong cloud.
So what's the difference to you guys for that?
Pricing is one.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a lot less money.
Really? Government is
The
less.
government's less,
Okay.
yes.
It's interesting, that's not been our experience.
You're the wrong one.
No.
Defense budget,
that's different. So. And that's about it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so.
So I had a question about water and sewer.
Yes.
So I guess question is sort of how much of their data is in the GIS? And the reason I came to ask is that they evidently don't have in the GIS whether service lines are copper or I guess lead, whatever the predecessor to copper was. So I had the occasion to getting a second meter almost for irrigation, and they had to pull up some picture that evidently somebody had drawn when the original house was built. It showed the pipes and it said 1 inch C on it, and I'm like, okay, it's copper, you're good to go. But sort of surprised me that that kind of information is not encoded in the GIS, and there was it was kind of a little comical because I think that a lot of the records they have date back to the early part of the 1900s, and so, I don't know whether it's worth it to start moving those things to electronic or whether that's even been considered.
What they were pulling up, did you see them look at paper?
No, they printed something out to show me, which was, it was a scan thing that they had printed out.
They were in the GIS. They were in the GIS system.
That's where that came from.
Because what's that? That's a tie card.
Yeah.
That was scanned from back when.
Yeah.
So all those tie card records are scanned, and when they go to an address, they punch in the address and the tie card comes up.
But the data itself is not in the
data,
GIS, other than the image.
Other than the image, and they're in some of the newer installations. See what the water sewer department has a separate vendor that takes care of all their GIS data.
Okay.
And what happens is we get that from the vendor and we put it in GIS. The issue is that the water sewer department has to QA it first, and sometimes it doesn't get done. So we only put in the GIS what we're given.
Mhm.
So if they have all the attributes in there for the different pipes and so forth, then that all pulls over. If they don't, it's not there.
Okay.
So, and
It seems like I was reading in the Belmont Citizens Forum newsletter about all of the apparent leakage of sewage into storm drains,
right,
and how they're going to great lengths now or they are proposed to go to great lengths to try to figure out where the contamination is occurring from. And it occurs to me that if there's some data that's available, it might be less expensive in some ways to look at the data and say, okay, who's got the oldest system hooked up to their house, because that's most likely, more likely to be something that's leaking than something that was built, 3 years ago.
with all the data that's been given to us is in the GIS. We just actually, few months ago, got them to use tablets. So instead of grabbing the big books and maps and running out and running back to the office and getting something else, they use the tablets. So again,
trying to work with it to drag them into the 21st
we're doing
century.
it, as best we can, as fast as we can. So.
Anything else for Dave? Dave, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you want to, who's up first? I think I'm up first. Yes? Yes.
Yeah, on your
Do you
agenda.
have anyone else from town here? So, yeah, so we're gonna move on to our subcommittee reports, and it's 12:09, so let's try and get out of here within the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, Steve took a lot of time.
Yeah. I got to talk, huh?
No need, Mr. Brown.
So with what's left of the night, okay, so 21st Century Subcommittee, we met on August 8th, made some good progress on our surveys, but have not, so our purview is basically to both assess the other committees in town and the public about ways to increase interactivity, access to information, and so on. So to that end, we've designed a couple surveys that we probably need to circulate out to the rest of the committee to review. And then now that we've got committees back in session in the fall, go about asking them to give us their thoughts. And basically these are surveys that are asking them, the process for, how they access information about a meeting, how they learn about meetings, what types of needs they have for the committees themselves, like how they go about setting up appointments and scheduling things, and just trying to get a sense of a little bit of a workflow around committees. And then also on the public side, how do you interact with committees that are with the town government, and how are you consuming information? Where are you getting your information? How do you find out what's going on? Is it from minutes? Is it from, the media? Is it word of mouth? Is it social media? Just that type of stuff. I should defer to my other committee members, Jim.
So one of the things we talked about was approaching other towns about ways that they use technology to facilitate committee operations. And we came up with a handful of questions and identified a few neighboring towns that we thought we could try to identify people in those towns to talk to about committee operations and how to use technology.
Yes, but we haven't done anything.
We haven't done it yet.
Last month, but we need to. So we're a little behind. We're not doing as well as Glenn's committee at all. We're
Not a race.
We're getting our butt kicked. But so I would like to have a meeting probably in like early October, and maybe between now and then we can do that survey of. So I met with Adam with Selectman Dash on this issue and got his thoughts and input, and his comments very much were it'd be really great to understand what other towns are doing on these, in terms of. So, for example, low-hanging fruit might be for things like this, virtual participation by committee members, not just the public. That's something that would require the Board of Selectmen to approve. Do we want to recommend that they do that or not? And that might be sort of look at what other towns are doing, what their experiences with the bid, what are the pros and cons. Is the public in favor of it? Has it increased, communication back and forth between the public and elected officials or appointed officials? Figure all that in, and then you can go to the selectmen and say, here's a recommendation, do it or don't do it.
As a little piece to that, the town clerk, I think, would be very happy to work with you.
Yes.
Since the town clerk, all committee information runs through the town clerk's office.
Yes.
That's
a great suggestion.
Yes. In fact, in some of our brainstorming, we talked a little bit about something it sounds like she's already executing on, which is how to provide sort of more of an automated approach to agendas and minutes collection and things like that. Right. So yeah, that was on our list of people to talk to.
Yep.
I would guess the town clerk's office would also be a good source of contacts with other towns as well.
Yes.
So if you're looking to benchmark, they could probably do introductions or make recommendations for places that would be friendly to that conversation.
Yeah, and definitely also for distributing the survey, because I think she would, certainly for town meeting members, and Ellen often sends stuff out on behalf of groups in town. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. So that's what we've got so far. Again, not a lot to show, but for our skeletal surveys, which I'll circulate to the group after the meeting and maybe get some comments back from you all individually. But maybe plan on doing a meeting in early October and
you guys have a target date for when you'd like to have either the survey completed or some results, feedback, or
said something about December at the last.
I think we want to try and shoot to have something to report out by end of calendar year.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is doable.
Great.
So that's kind of where we're at. We want to understand both what committees are doing. We want to understand what the public is doing. Aaron Lubian was going to come in and talk to us about Nextdoor. I'm not sure if he's going to make it or not, but that's an example of a social. Nextdoor is kind of mixed between Facebook and Craigslist, I guess, is the way to think about it. It's very popular in Belmont, and it's become a kind of go-to place for public postings. And I need a babysitter. I lost my cat. I've got some kids' toys, that type of stuff. Not as much politics.
Mm-hmm. What's your cat's name?
Would you like to know?
I
already do. My cat's in the underground. He's in the resistance. So that type of stuff. Okay, that's our committee.
Okay. So if you guys want to know, the second subcommittee we have is the formal name is Technology, Cybersecurity, and Public Health, which covers a lot of ground. So one of the first things we did, and it's Charlie, myself, Dan, and then Cheryl, who's not here today. First thing we did was actually narrow the scope, and also with some direction from Paul, we wanted to shoot for some things that were tangible and we could do within a relatively short amount of time. We spent some time talking with both of you, as well as some of your other peers in the town, just learning a little bit more about what's being done, and then floated the idea about trying to do something that might be good for the town citizens, right, as a short-term effect, since that you all have your own spaces, your own spheres of influence, so to speak, but education outreach to the general population was not one of them, right? There was no one who actually had that responsibility. So the two opportunities we identified, one was actually having some sort of a public conversation around, cybersecurity. And some topics that are in the news or that are relevant for just like home security, if you will. The second opportunity that came up was, the Meet Belmont, which I'm sure you're all aware of. That was just a few weeks ago on August 29th. So that came up as an idea, and we thought that might be a great opportunity for us to have a presence and to, basically, have a deliverable that was in a reasonable amount of time that was achievable and actually serve some good. So the group itself came up with this. It's, if you read through it, it's not rocket science, but it was just a way to build awareness. And I unfortunately wasn't there, but I'm going to ask my colleagues here to just comment on how that event went.
Well, I thought it was a big success, of course. I guess it was a little bit of a milestone because I don't think iTech has ever exhibited at all.
Yeah.
At Meet Belmont.
No.
Okay, so,
So
and
those flyers that you gave out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Your phone number was on the back.
Yeah.
And I think the name of his cat. Also.
Yeah.
we, what we did was, we actually had, 3 of the subcommittee reps, Dan, Cheryl, and myself. You were out of town, I believe, at the time. And we had our exhibit, we had a poster. What we just passed out was the flyer that we distributed. And we were basically talking about the effort that iTech is going to be making, we hope, in making cybersecurity issues more, not sort of more important, but perhaps
Raise awareness.
more aware to the town. And at least in talking with people who came by, said, look, this effort is focused at you. It's not focused at businesses. It's not focused at technology professionals. It's the concerns that you have and the ways that you should consider protecting yourself.
Excellent.
We have a fairly good sort of level of traffic. We benefited very much from being at the same table as the light department. Their swag was really good. I mean, I took some of it, they're giving out free light bulbs and night lights. That helped us, I think, but.
Agenda item for next meeting, iTech swag.
And also Jeff Hansel was walking around with his video camera, and he also had this delightful young woman with a strong French accent. I'm not sure do you know her?
No, I don't know.
She was a volunteer sort of MC, and I got interviewed. About
Was it his wife?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
His wife's French, so.
Well, maybe that was her. I didn't ask questions. I mean, they came over.
Delightful young woman.
Yeah.
Sounds like one.
They were sort of doing, they didn't interview everybody. They sort of took a sampling and they interviewed us, and Dan very thoughtfully just said, okay, talk to him. Because of, I guess, my long-standing tenure here,
Yes.
right? Was that more or less it?
Jeff and I have crossed paths many times and
Right.
been acquainted for about 10 years. And
Okay.
so he came over and said, hey, I want to interview you. And I said, no, you don't.
Here's
your man right here.
Great.
Well, and actually, as you all know, I'm a big ham, so I loved it. Although I must admit, I'm not sure how it completely turned out because it was sort of sudden, and I was trying to push the issue of cybersecurity more than iTech, to be honest with you. But I'm pretty sure I linked the two efforts.
I think it went really well. I think you
Think so?
did very well.
Thank
I
you.
haven't seen the clip, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean, cybersecurity is an area where, what we talk about and do in this committee really directly affects people's lives. And,
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the reason he was there was that eventually he'll put the clips together and they'll make it to public TV at some point, right?
it may have happened already.
yeah.
Which is great. That means we get a second bite at the promotion apple.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And one of the things that, and Glenn will, I'm sure, enlarge on this, is that one of the things now is we've got the speaker, he'll explain who that is. And now how do we effectively promote this? And we've got the date, we've got the location. How do we effectively promote this? But I don't know if you agree, but I thought our exhibit went well. We got the added bonus of having this video clip that, along with other clips, will make it to the TV. And in general, it was an enjoyable and profitable effort for us.
I hope it bears fruit. It's always kind of hit or miss at one of these events. You don't know what people are going to be interested in, and people walk up and ask questions. You know, what is ITAC? Why do you exist? You know, those are the sorts of things we can answer pretty easily. But there were one or two people who walked up and said, you know, computers played no part of my life. Why would I possibly care about this? And
Now you can tell them Equifax.
we didn't try to disillusion them. I mean, once a person takes a position like that, it's pretty hard to.
Hold on, my headphones are ringing.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to pick them up. And I'm sure there are actually people out there who are fairly insulated. You know, there's still plenty of jobs you might have where you don't have to, you know, go online all the time like most of us do. As far as the fire department had the best swag, there's no way you could possibly compete with them.
What do they have?
Until they run out. They had candy and they had bags to put other swag in.
Swag bags?
They had prescription things, so you know those little pill things where you have 7 things and you put your pills in them for each day.
Oh, the pill boxes.
Yeah,
those are very useful.
those are very useful. Yeah.
So in the interest of time, I'm actually going to. Maybe I'm less interested in the bill boxes, to be perfectly honest.
Shall I answer or make a recommendation about the promotional thing?
I'm sorry.
Please, yeah.
You mentioned how to promote this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
3 things come to mind immediately. First of all, the media center.
Yep.
They run a bulletin board.
Yep.
Channels.
Okay.
So you just talk to Jeff and they'll post that. The paper, of course.
Yep.
Joanna, I'm sure, and she
Absolutely.
goes on the media center board. And third, I don't know if you have time. You know, the light department will sometimes put inserts into the bills.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay.
So you've got
So our next subcommittee meeting is next week, and we're going to be talking about all the promotional details. So that's very helpful.
And
The other recommendations we had actually received from, so we were in touch with, what is it called? The Vision 21 Implementation Committee, which put on the Talk of the Town series. They started it last year. They had quite a number of speakers, and I think it was up to about 200 attendees at a talk last spring. So originally we toyed with like, would they be interested in being part of, you know, helping us? And they're like, no, that's way too soon. Like, we're not doing our next one until next spring, and it was way too much work. So, you know, we wanted to obviously do it this year and relatively soon. So we found the library very supportive, and so that's the location that we're going to use.
Yes.
We also talked with folks at the Beach Center, and they were very happy to host this as well. But so the library can do some of that promotion, and as Paul hinted earlier, on September 23rd, he's leading, and I may show up for a talk around cybersecurity as well, like one of their afternoon workshops. And so, you know, we can piggyback on.
Yeah, and frankly, if any other committee members are interested in speaking or being part of it, just email me, let me know. I'm happy to put you on the agenda.
It's the 23rd, you
The
said?
23rd, I can send you the link, because the library has a sign up on their webpage.
You're doing this at the library?
I'm doing it at the library, yep. And it's like a 2-3 hour session.
It's like 1 to 3 or something like that, I think.
I was gonna focus on just kind of securing your accounts, because I think that's where, for a lot of people, just using 2-factor authentication, you know, like low-hanging fruit, huge payoff security-wise, but they just don't know about it, you know, or password managers or something like that. So I was gonna do a minimum of talking and actually more of a kind of hands-on, like bring your devices and we'll get you set up doing some of this stuff.
But just back to this, other part of the promotion that we have been recommended from a few folks was some of the sort of social media-like formats. So one is actually the Nextdoor platform that had been mentioned. Apparently there's some Yahoo groups around that are also frequented by certain communities in town.
Yeah.
And then also we may want to coordinate and see if, now this one is a little tricky because we're not a school affiliated presentation, right? But we know that there are a lot of families who get their news about certain types of events through the listservs at their schools.
Yes.
The district mailing lists can be used for almost anything of general interest, as long as it's relatable to the normal audience. So we've sent out mail through the district mailing list for fundraising events, for the Rotary Club, for example.
Okay.
And
so as a subcommittee, we'll figure all that out next week, and then we'll come up with a plan. The speaker we had is actually one of my work colleagues, so it's sort of an easy ask. But he himself is a former intelligence officer with the U.S. government, and then now works as the lead of our technical solutions group. And so he does demonstrations and talks cybersecurity with leading Fortune 500 companies all the time. And then he's also, I think he had a friend, I want to say it was like with MITRE Group or something like that, but had done these sort of public service discussions in the past. So it's not an unfamiliar kind of ask. And then we said, well, we'll make it up as we go, in the sense of like, we'll try to make it topical to some, news thing that's happening right now. So again, if it's the Equifax, great. If it's something a little bit more recent to it, we can certainly morph to that. Because, we as a company, I work at a cybersecurity firm. So we're looking at news, on a daily basis, right?
what's the date you said it was scheduled?
October 30th. And again, to the point about Media Center promotion, we originally were looking at October 24th, and again, recommendation had been coordinate tightly with Media Center for a number of reasons, and the 24th is actually the date of their board meeting, and so they were unable to support us, and that's why we changed it to the 30th.
And we're pretty much assured that they will have somebody be able to take this, right?
That was my understanding.
So it's October 30th?
October.
Yes.
30th. Sorry, Jonathan, you have a comment?
Yes. I guess I see. I don't get the connection. They have a board meeting, so.
Or it was some sort of.
Include them from.
They have their annual meeting.
Annual meeting. Sorry, I apologize. I misspoke.
When I talked to Jeff about the 24th, he said, "Oh, that's the worst day you could possibly have picked."
Yeah, because basically all of their staff is.
That's right. Yeah, I misspoke. Right. Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense.
So our speaker was able to do it. We changed that date. So the next thing I need to do is just lock down some sort of a quick blurb that basically advertises this, and then we'll figure out promotion channels next week.
We need to make sure that the loop is really closed with the Media Center. Are you going to?
Yeah, I'll follow it up.
Okay.
I mean, I think it was between you or Cheryl who had a lot of those contacts, right? So
I think we should also acknowledge that when Glenn and I were sort of interviewing the sources of information around the town about cybersecurity, these two guys were extremely helpful. Both Dave and Steve. We had very good talks, and I'd say we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Did we not? Yeah. So thank you again.
You're welcome. I would say that everyone that we've approached from the town has,
Yes.
not to diminish the quality of your responses, but everyone.
That was the guys in the room.
So they were pretty much kind of in the middle of a curve.
But go ahead.
So, yeah,
right.
We also went to the bottom of the Belmont.
Where were they?
Everyone has been extremely helpful. However, I don't think we've completely closed the loop with the police department yet. I'm not sure.
no, right. Cheryl had tried to
No, we
outreach,
haven't.
and that hadn't
No, we
happened. So that's the one set of interviews that did not happen.
So these interviews, like, what did they consist of?
It was, so I will summarize my point of view. You guys can tell us if you had a different impression of it. But it was for us to, and we paired off. So, Cheryl and Dan outreached to a few of the departments. Charlie and I outreached. The two of us ended up speaking to both Dave and Steve. But
And
it was
also the police department. Too.
yeah, and we spoke with, right, that's right,
John.
with John. It was just to explain what our initiative was, and then also to learn a little bit more about what is being done in the departments around security and understand what their scope of purview was. And then so that was sort of first and second order priorities. And then the third one was to vet this idea of trying to do something that was more focused on citizens, and if that was something that seemed like a useful end product of what our efforts were leading towards.
Then I think, see how this October one goes, but I would think, maybe have a regular cadence of these every, you can have one every quarter or something like that, where you get a speaker.
Right. We didn't want to overcommit, right? Because again, this is sort of like.
I think you should probably overcommit. Yeah.
Well, actually, there is the issue of, we're an advisory committee. Are we going to become a committee that provides services? And that's probably a topic that's important, but it's probably not a topic for this evening.
Well, I mean, our charter is to advise the community as well as the elected.
Charter is for the selectmen.
Yeah, pretty sure of that. But the question is, can that be interpreted to extend under certain circumstances to the community? And I'm throwing that out as a concept, not taking one side or the other, but this has already come up in our discussions internally within the subcommittee.
I think it's I'm obviously not a lawyer, but it's at what point does providing advice, which is what we are going to do, and even at this talk, we'll be providing advice.
Yeah.
We will not actually be manipulating people's computers and making them more secure. We'll only be providing the benefit of accumulated wisdom. Is that a service or is that advice? I don't know where that falls.
And let me just, on the webpage, the role of the Information Technology Advisory Committee is to provide guidance to the Board of Selectmen, town departments, and other town committees on technology matters. So you're right, it isn't specific to the selectmen. It's actually the town generally.
Right.
Well, wait a minute, hold on, no, hold on. That's to the selectmen and the other town agencies. It's not to the citizens.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
you cut me off. I was actually saying, you're right, it doesn't actually say to the public. You're right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
But that said, Dan's point is a good one, and we're probably getting to a point now where we might consider expanding who we give advice to. Okay, so
right. I mean,
without getting into the business
so we're a locus of technology expertise. So for if we're working through the library or we're working through the Council on Aging, or through the selectmen or through the school department, then I think we're fulfilling our obligation to advise those bodies. So I think that's kind of the general. That's what I advocate for. We're a locus of technology expertise and know-how.
I think the thing that we found and that's made this a more exciting endeavor than at least I thought it was going to be is that, hey, we're really doing something that may be very valuable to a large number of people in the town.
Yes.
And people who are not in the IT business.
Yes.
And I think that personally is very beneficial.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So the last commendation I'll just make on it is that the group has actually been pretty good about meeting even despite vacations and holidays. So since whatever it was, May, when we first had our first meeting, I think we've met once a month just to keep this cadence up and to get some of this done. And then there's been some work on the back end too. So, thank you to you guys and thank you to Cheryl for saying.
Sure.
So was she on the hang up for some period of time? I thought I heard something beep.
I don't know.
That's his thing.
That's
that
his-
goes
Oh,
on.
you heard me? No, that you heard.
Oh, was that
I
what
have
that
it.
was?
It tells me when time when.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Other issues or other matters before the cybersecurity public health subcommittee.
No.
Okay.
Can't hear.
Okay. So the only other things I had to discuss, Erin didn't make it in for next door, but maybe we'll have her to our next meeting. I did have a conversation with Selectman Dash. We just had breakfast one morning, and I wanted to update him on the subcommittees that we created and some of the work that we're doing, just to make sure that the selectmen are apprised of our activities, and to get a sense of should we be presenting this to the full body. And his response is basically, we're really busy, so when you're ready to you have something to present, then let's schedule you guys and have you come in and present it.
And just as a footnote to that, the selectmen, I think, I saw at least 2 out of 3 of the selectmen circulating at Meet Belmont, but we had an opportunity to talk to Dash.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we had an opportunity.
Yeah. I did ask him about questions for, now that there's a search firm working on behalf of the town to find a new town manager, if it would be useful to submit questions or prospective interview questions or screening questions for a candidate on matters related to IT. He was sort of like, sure, that'd be great. The more information, the better, but we're working through a search firm. So I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other about it, whether that would be something that we were interested in doing or even able to do. But I thought I'd just throw it out there to the committee and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not sure what we would necessarily come up with, but.
Nor am I.
I'm agnostic. I'll even say I'm not inclined to. I think they're going to have plenty of things to sort out, and we also have some professionals in town, right, that also can handle those things. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you this, the search committee met with every department head.
Yes.
And asked us, and then produced a report from that they gave to the selectmen. So I went through a whole bunch.
You pretty much covered that.
So you had to sit down.
You've
with
covered
it.
it. Okay.
Are they interviewing these candidates, or are they?
I think, I'm trying to remember the
They just want a
process.
bigger pool to choose
I
from?
believe they're doing an initial screening, but
The phone.
the real, yeah, that kind of thing. Then the real interviewing will be done by another group.
Right.
Selectmen and some people that selectmen, some of the department heads.
And the only other thing was just, we had a little conversation, before everyone was here, but, I had on here, kind of Petya WannaCry, ransomware, those types of things. There was a discussion about whether to, for some of the folks who joined later, have a component of ITAC that is kind of an executive session where we might be able to talk about matters related to outbreaks, cybersecurity stuff that we might be the type of thing that's, I think, covered by the notion of executive session, information you don't necessarily want to share with the broad public. And I think there was a consensus that was a good idea. I think all we need to do is check with town council and make sure that we are able to do that as a committee.
Well, the question is, would that include everybody on the committee or just a subset of the people on the committee?
I think everybody in the committee.
All right, well, that's what I would argue.
But
I think what it
The only
does,
mean would be turning off the camera.
No, I understand it would mean that, but in addition to that, would it mean any other sort of limitation? And I don't think that would be
Another
a
question
question.
I would ask is the item that you put on the agenda sufficiently time sensitive that we should talk about it? We should proactively talk about it tonight, assume that we are correct in our interpretation of the executive session information on the Secretary of State's website, and then you can check with the town council after the fact and make sure we read it correctly and validate that for future meetings. Or if it's not time sensitive, then
I don't think it is, and I think
Okay.
given the lateness of the hour, it's
I
probably
was going to
something that
selfishly say, given the hour.
Yeah, we probably don't want to bring it up at the very end, and so I would probably, let's check with George, and for our next meeting, we can have maybe just a standing item of executive session where we could, Dave, Steve, whomever, Robin would feel free to bring some of those issues.
It's been a while since I've looked at that, but I have a feeling that this kind of conversation is not covered by the language of what's permitted for executive session.
Is that right?
I think, because I think no one perhaps contemplated this kind of topic back when they wrote the,
so I did look earlier when we started
What
the
do you-
Jonathan,
what do you
and there's
say?
and I
real
said-
estate and personnel. right?
there's a security item though.
There is
That
security.
relates to security security items related to people and devices. So
Sounds good, yeah.
Yeah.
We're good.
They don't necessarily include or exclude cyber from that, right? Okay.
neither included nor excluded.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Do we want to talk about scheduling our Q4 committee meeting? And then we
Yeah,
can
right.
go.
We want to schedule a subcommittee meeting to work here.
I'm happy to. Let's get the full committee and then. What's generally good for, so we would be looking for November, I mean, maybe mid-November? Or do we want to try and get it in October?
No, I mean, October is just
Yeah.
a month from now. What about the very beginning of December before the holidays kick in?
That's fine too. That works for people. I don't know, Dave, Steve, you guys have preference?
I'm on vacation the first week of December, so that's a limiting factor for me anyway.
What do you call the first week?
Yeah,
The Friday is the first.
Right, that's the first through the 9th. I'm in Florida.
The week before that is.
Thanksgiving.
That's Thanksgiving, yeah. Or is it? Is it?
Thanksgiving
No,
is probably
it's actually the week
the
before.
23rd.
What do you think about
Yeah.
the week before Thanksgiving?
The 16th,
13th or the 17th?
yeah, November. Yeah, if that would work for me, or the 28th, 29th, 30th, we could squeeze it in after Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah, either of those would work for me too.
My vote is to,
Assuming I don't have
Push it.
a work trip that I don't know.
the 28th, 29th, and 30th will sort of push it towards the true end of the fourth quarter, so. That would be my,
Actually, I will probably end up in a trip to DC the week of the 13th, though I don't have it scheduled yet.
So do you want to
But
say
I'm
the
looking at
29th? So that's a Wednesday, or Thursday is the 30th. I don't know if Thursday works better for you guys, or the Tuesday as well.
Wednesday is much better for me than Thursday, I think.
Okay,
I got it for Wednesday.
Okay.
Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 29th?
I have a question.
yes,
Way back
yes.
when was it decided that Steve and I would have to attend quarterly meetings?
You,
I
you,
think
From
that was
my
sort of the
recollection-
agreement, wasn't it?
I thought.
I thought we were gonna do a first, so Q1, Q2, and Q4, and we were gonna break on Q3. I mean, I'm sorry, Q1, Q3, Q4, and then no summer quarterly meeting. Is that,
Right, I think that's what I remember. I could probably look up minutes if you want me to.
I just find it not beneficial so if we meet in another couple of months, I'll be reporting on our status on the projects that we're already working on that I talked about today,
okay.
tonight. I just don't see the usefulness in that, that's all.
Yeah, I think we had moved to more of an on-demand model, if I recall, when we were discussing it, particularly around maybe a topic that was germane to
Right.
our involvement or participation in, like, we did with Glenn and Charlie.
Right.
That's always on the table.
Right.
Well, I mean, my recollection was we were gonna do 3 quarterly meetings a year. And we're doing this one kind of near the end.
well, we're gonna do 4, but only 3 might include the
That's right,
department.
that's right. That's a full committee with the department. Let's set the meeting, and we can kind of continue this conversation. Maybe we can meet individually and continue this conversation then. But I mean, I think this committee, the committee, needs to meet as a whole body, whether you and Dave and you and Steve are.
No, actually, I can quite sympathize with the viewpoint, so.
Yeah.
I actually do appreciate your,
Yeah, I'm
Right.
absolutely not. Yeah, I'm open to it as well.
So I see what happened.
I'm thinking in terms of the committee.
I see what happened here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the October meeting, we had it to 2 scheduled ones and ad hoc. And in the November one, which you weren't at and you weren't at, it went to 3 somehow.
Yeah.
So I guess.
Are you talking about the meeting of the committee or the meeting of the committee with the department heads?
No, I'm talking about back, this is before, so in October was when we originally decided to scale back the format of the meetings, and we agreed to the 3 quarterlies with the with two meetings that would require the department heads
All right,
and everything else being somewhat ad hoc.
with the department.
That's right.
We eventually moved to an agreement amongst ourselves that we should get together at least 4 times a year.
Right, that's
Right.
what and that's the one where they weren't there, but what it sounds like is we're scheduling something that they weren't in agreement that they'd be obligated to.
That's probably true.
Yeah, what we
Right.
can do is invite them.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here to support you guys, so like, you
Yeah.
know, if it's, you know, right, I mean, if there's nothing to report, or there's no function, you know, there's no benefit to
And,
you
and
being
like,
here. then,
like
yeah.
tonight, I thought that it was good that, you know, we've been
Yeah.
a long time, so sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
But-
But the committee needs
Well,
to
the
meet.
committee,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's totally fine, yeah. I don't
Right.
want, you
Okay,
know,
so
again,
we're good.
we want to support you guys and the work that you do, and if there's not value to you being here, then, yeah, don't feel the need to come. And, you know, or if there is, or if there's something that comes up between now and then great, right?
Yes.
So are we set on the 29th at 7:30?
We are,
Okay.
yes.
What if we had better hors d'oeuvres? Would that make any difference?
Swag.
You don't have to-
Yeah.
Swag, how about swag?
Light
bulbs.
Well, speaking of which, so for this Meet Belmont, just as a sort of a committee FYI, we had costs, right? We actually produced materials and we had to print a poster.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And we're like, how are we gonna pay for that? I'm like, I don't know. So we ended up just, I still need to figure out with my fellow committee members, like how we're splitting the bill.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, that was something that suddenly, you know, we'd never incurred costs before. So
And
It's
by the
an interesting
way,
question, right? It can be, yeah,
anyways, we sucked it up. What's that?
Could you get reimbursed?
I
by the
bet
town?
you could. I bet you could.
Yeah, we didn't explore that.
You'd
I
probably
mean,
have
it
to
was,
do it- you'd probably have to arrange it in advance.
yeah, you can't just sort of spend money and then say like, hey, we spend money on that.
So you can ask them, they can say,
Maybe
no, not
$50.
this time, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
we
they
could.
might just do it.
I mean, it was, it was not a big line item, but this time around.
Well, we didn't go for the light bulbs, so.
Well, I think
Maybe iTech needs a sponsor.
It's an important conversation to start, because if we do things like, if we have a very large attendance at our talks and they're ongoing, and we have to start to rent a venue.
Right.
Yes, or have substantial handouts or.
Yeah, exactly. You want to produce
Pay
some,
speakers.
some more substantial, you know, information sheet or other,
Yep.
you know, tool.
There-
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
ways that we could spend money, obviously we're not.
I'm sure that the town can help us with that if it gets to that point, so no further.
Okay.
29th, is that what we're going for?
29th at 7:30, and I think that's that. Do we want to just quickly try and schedule a?
Sure, we could adjourn first.
Yeah, let's adjourn, and then we'll do that.
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
So Dan, this is the room we're gonna be in next week.
Okay.
Just so you guys know. It's not the room downstairs, that one. Is that?
It'll be down the board, right?
Yeah, it'll be on the board and I'll send an email out as a reminder. I only just found out earlier this
I
week.
sat in there for
Yeah.
10 minutes, I'll remember.
But then there'll be a different